I want to pull up this article from Bounding into Comics.
That's awesome, dude.
Yes.
Godzilla actor Bryan Cranston, well, Bryan Cranston is well known for a lot of things, claims he has white blindness, says he needs to learn and change. In an interview with the LA Times to promote his upcoming role as Charles Nichols in the stage play Power of the Sale, he revealed he suffers from what he calls white blindness and advocated for limits on free speech.
What?
Okay. It's a privileged viewpoint to be able to look at the Klan and laugh at them and belittle them for their broken and hateful ideology. Blah, blah, blah. You get the point. You know what this really is? This is, he doesn't actually believe any of this stuff.
No, he's being held hostage.
Exactly.
He's being held hostage by his manager, by his agents, by the industry he needs to continue to be a part of.
I'm afraid he's being changed.
Ben Shapiro, I implore thee, we must save this man. Yes. We must give him an opportunity to say, all that stuff was because they made me say it. I just want to make films. And we'll be like, yeah, you're cool. Right on. We're a fan.
Or is he such a capitalist
that
they are? They're just hyper capitalists who are like, you know what? If I have to do this to make the money, I'll do this to make the money.
Is he possibly worried that his last 2 or 3 movies didn't go so well? And that if he does this, he'll be on front page again.
Such a good actor, and Breaking Bad was a terrible script. I'm just going to say that now. There was big flaw in it that I can get into.
What were the last films he produced?
Well,
I'd
have to look.
I haven't seen anything from him since Trumbo.
The Trumbo movie,
2015
was not great.
They killed him off in Act 1 in Godzilla.
Look, I can't give specifics, but we can look it up. But it is inarguable that he has been as relevant as he was when Breaking Bad ended. He's not.
Then it feels like almost...
So you've got the El Camino, the Breaking Bad movie. Okay, fine.
Isle of Dogs, the voice.
One and Only Ivan. Ladies' Night is something else.
Maybe it was the getting cast as Zordon in Power Rangers that did him in.
His work on Malcolm in the Middle was supreme.
I mean, he's fantastic.
He's so good.
He's so good.
And
by the way, I'd work with him in a second.
I would 100%.
In a second.
And I think you give him the opportunity and you give him a path to success. But I wonder how much of what people are chasing after is legacy. And so the issue is these people who live in the cult genuinely believe that's the real world. And they view actual America as a foreign entity and something to be feared or something not legitimate. Whereas, the way we described it, especially yesterday talking about the Civil War with Stephen Marsh, there's a multicultural democracy in the United States and a constitutional republic. They're at war, they're at odds with each other. But the woke democracy is not the real mainstream America. It's something weird and new that emerged in the past 15 or 20 years.
That's held in place by the media that promotes it daily. Like, you don't realize that your average neighbor does not believe the stuff that you're watching on the news or that you're seeing in these television shows. The average neighbor across from you is a lot more reasonable than you would think, but these beliefs are held in place by the mainstream establishment press, which has, your television holds a lot of weight in your house. The social media that your kids look at holds a lot of weight in your house. A lot of times when we talk about CNN, like they rag on the ratings of CNN, right? It's like it only got 800,000 views this episode, right? I'm like, yeah, but these views are parroted by celebrities, each of who has hundreds of millions of followers, right. And that pushes it outward to the general public. That's
a good point. They measure only 3 million views, but how many retweets that show how many more views? That's a calculation that hasn't been accurately done.
How many of the average celebrity just watches CNN, parrots those beliefs, and then every one of their followers is,
Or how many? Bryan Cranston has an agent who comes to him and says, "Look, man, you got to come out and you got to say this stuff. Okay, it's going to be big. You're going to get a bunch of attention." And he's like, "Oh, okay."
I got a feeling he runs his agent and that he actually got brainwashed. I saw it happen to a few other people where one morning they wake up and they're like, Yeah, whiteness is a problem. Huh. I think LeBron James had happened to all of a sudden one day.
Yeah, they just want money, man.
You go to enough of those seminars they make you attend to if you work for the government, and I'm sure more than a few of them do end up starting to fall prey to it.
Very prevalent in Hollywood.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Brutal. And those stories, Tim, I see 20 of those a day when I'm looking when I'm looking up stuff to talk about. Like a lot of those, I'll skip them. I'm like, you know what? It's so obvious. We could cover that every day, and I'd be like, do I really need to rag on this? Read this.
You know what the weirdest thing too is? I'm sure you can go to Bryan Cranston's history and find a whole bunch of racist and off-color jokes and offensive comedy and transphobia. I mean, there was someone mentioned, I saw on Twitter, SVU. NBC Law and Order SVU, and that the main character Benson has been severely transphobic in a bunch of different episodes or something. I don't know if that's true.
Yeah.
Because I know that often these people lie or exaggerate, but I wouldn't be surprised because it was a very different world 15 years ago.
The culture shifted.
I wonder if this is actually, he's got a crisis management firm, risk assessment, and they're like, you did these episodes of Malcolm in the Middle. These could come up and bite you in the ass. If you come out now and become devout, you'll be safe.
There are absolutely examples of that, and in Hollywood, if you're the most vocal about being a sort of a male feminist or any of these things,
never trust a male feminist.
You have the worst history of dating in past and things like that. So that is a rule. I think in Cranston's case, it literally is he was less popular. He's just less part of the zeitgeist. He was fading.
Yeah.
And he said, "How can I get back on the front page?" That was it. I think it was that simple.
So he decided to figuratively self-immolate.
Yes, that's right.
He was like, I know.
That is exactly what happened, in my opinion.
Look at James Gunn. He had his tons of tweets that were really creepy, we can't even talk about on here. And if you're part of the establishment, you get a pass, because what Disney did is they fired him. DC hired him, and then Disney quietly rehires him for Guardians of the Galaxy 3.
I wonder if it actually played out very, very favorably for him. I wonder if he was actually, quote unquote, fired by Marvel. James Gunn, I think it was Mike Cernovich who pulled up these tweets to make a point about cancel culture.
Because that was after Rosie O'Donnell.
Right.
Yeah.
And Rosie O'Donnell or Roseanne? Or
Roseanne.
Roseanne.
Yeah.
So, he pulls up these tweets from
Roseanne's
these like James Gunn used to make those movies, those really like gross horror films or whatever they were called.
Yeah.
And so he has these really off-color, offensive jokes. And I'm like, he's trying to be an edgelord. It's whatever. But of course, it creates a media frenzy. By quote unquote firing him, he was able to work for Marvel and DC.
Yeah, he got to do both.
He had to do both.
And Peacemaker came out great.
Peacemaker's fantastic.
Yep, we loved it.
And shout out to have you seen Peacemaker?
Oh yeah, it's great.
So I don't want to. I'm not going to give too deep of a spoiler, but if you don't want to hear it, you're being warned. I don't think it's a spoiler. I just want to say, the villains in that show are the establishment Democrats.
Absolutely.
I'm not even kidding. They give a speech, and I'm just like,
climate alarmism.
That's like Dr. Fauci, right? Like giving a speech. What is this?
It was like climate.
They're the bad guys.
It was climate alarmism mixed with mask propaganda.
Yeah.
Disguised as aliens coming from another planet, and
they're the villains.
They're the bad guys.
And I'm like, I actually thought they were going to try and pull some like, it turns out, this whole authoritarian worldview is the right idea, but they're the bad guys. And I was like, got to respect it.
You know what we got to do? Create a movie where we've already, as a species, learned how to withdraw the carbon dioxide from the atmosphere and fix the climate change thing to create graphene with it, and we're building new materials. But now we're competing with trees for the carbon dioxide, and it's a new problem.
And the trees become mobile.
And the trees become sentient and mobile.
Yeah.
But that way, it'll implant in people's minds like, hey, it's not that big of a problem. By the way, climate change, we can fix the climate if we get proactive about it.
Well, to get a little bit more broad,
it is a big problem that we can fix.
Right. To get a little bit more broad on your point, this is the purpose of culture. Is
it's
run, hide, fight, for instance, was about like standing up in defiance, like fighting for what you believe in and saving people and things like that. These are cultural messages. It was I haven't seen it, but I've seen the trailer, and there's like this young girl, she's being trained how to use a weapon, stuff like that. There's a photo going around of kids in Wyoming being in a gym with airsoft pellet guns. Mm-hmm. I'm sorry, not airsoft, with pellet CO2 compression rifles. And I'm like, my joke about it was, I am disgusted and offended. These children should be outside with 22s. Putting them in a gym with CO2. What are you doing? Give them a 22. Come on, it's. But the establishment Democrat activist view is shrieking, children with guns. And there's this video from libs of TikTok of a guy screaming, "What? Are you insane?" And I'm like, yo, guns are things. Like we used to teach kids how to be safe and respect them and understand them, and I think that's a good idea. So when you make a movie that shows someone teaching a young person how to use a weapon, that is creating the idea. It's planting in people's minds. This is a part of life. It's a normal part of life. That's the purpose of building culture. So you're right, Ian.
Yeah, not a movie about showing kids how to make guns, but in the movie, the character you love is showing kids, like is teaching kids.
Proper technique. And so then you understand that these things are a normal part of the world. So in your view about solutions towards climate change and stuff like that, making movies, showing possibilities, opens people's minds up to things they may have not considered before, which is why it's so important. if you seed culture only to the left, the woke, you're going to get movies like, man, have you seen the new Craft? The Craft, you know the original The Craft?
Oh, I know all about it.
You've seen the new one?
Yep.
It was I don't even think you can call it a movie.
No.
It was a grouping of random woke PSAs that don't seem to go together at all. They cast a spell, turn a guy gay or something. I'm just like, this is not a movie. It makes no sense. But if kids grow up watching that stuff, their brains are going to be all jumbled up and broken from this nonsense.
One of the biggest producers in Hollywood was caught in an interview saying he didn't know any female directors, even though a female had just directed a movie for him.
Wow.
Yes.
And so, of course, he got called out, semi-canceled for about 10 hours, and then back, and he was back because he's such a big producer. And so his sort of, his way of fixing things was to put a bunch of female-directed movies into production. The problem is he didn't go and oversee those movies the same way that he did his male directors.
He wouldn't be allowed to.
He let these women go on set and by themselves, and the movies failed. Black Christmas and The Craft.
Oh, Black Christmas is so bad.
And it's honestly really sad. And so he was applauded for hiring all these female directors, the truth is he let them fail.
That's like Biden's Afghanistan withdrawal.
Are you familiar with
exactly what he did. He
Kierkegaard's?
let it fail.
Are you familiar with Kierkegaard's story about the clown?
No.
A fire breaks out backstage at a theater, and the clown runs on stage to begin to warn the audience of the fire, and they all begin laughing. He then becomes more erratic and extreme. No, you need to understand. They all laugh even louder. And he says, I think this is how the world will end, with people believing it's a joke or something to that effect. And I wonder if, I think about that when I see this guy. He puts these female directors in play just because they're females, doesn't oversee them. The movies are abysmal and flop, and then everyone cheers for them. I wonder if what's actually happening is the people in the audience know there's a fire. They don't care, though, because they're all worried about being the one person to not clap while everyone else is clapping.
One of the female writers on one of the two movies started to talk about this phenomenon on Twitter and quickly stopped.
Oh, yeah.
Was sort of encouraged not to do that anymore.
Is that the girl that was talking to Jeremy Hamby, the quartering? I saw a good dialogue.
I don't think so. Jeremy's terrific.
She wrote the girl that's writing The Witcher, I think, decided to strike up a dialogue with Jeremy on Twitter, video chats.
Yeah.
So they were really talking about it. I was like, hey, yeah, diversity is important, but within one skin color, you can have a lot of different cultural diversity. Don't forget that when you're creating.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say the producer went further and created a deal with Amazon to make low budget horror movies where he could get his diversity quotas met, so that he could go back to making Halloween with a white male
director. Does he actually have quotas, or is it a personal thing of his?
It's a little. It's all part of the unspoken rule of Hollywood that's now more spoken, to be frank.
It's like the identity politics version of Wes Craven saying he'd only do horror films so they'd let him make a classic love story.
Yeah, and
he does what they say, the things they request of him with no passion for it whatsoever.
Although I love the new Joker movie, Todd, the director. He wanted to make Taxi Driver.
Yeah, let's just make a movie.
It's what he made.
So he made it. Yeah,
let's just make a good movie and call it Joker.
Yeah, but Todd Phillips. So you put it in a Joker storyline, and now you get $70 million to make the movie instead of $7.
$55 million made $1 billion without China.
Wow. But Joker was awesome.
It is awesome.
Taxi Driver is awesome too, though.
But that's the trick, right? It's happening with the new Batman.
I'd like to
movie.
make Indiana Jones in a new skin.
What's the new Batman movie?
The new Batman movie is a 1970s, new American cinema movie housed under Batman. Now, hopefully, it's great. That's the pitch.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think it will be, because they're letting Matt Reeves have run of his production, whereas every other Warner Brothers production they've done, they've interfered so heavily.
That's a party line, right?
Yeah.
Who knows? But that's what they're pitching. And Robert Pattinson is a great actor.
Yes,
so
The Lighthouse.
Yeah.
Joker was. Yeah. I saw Joker in theaters. The media tried destroying it. They claimed it was incel fan.
That's why it made $1 billion.
And but I went to see it, and it's really amazing what the movie is. I hope everybody's seen it because that ending,
No, I haven't seen it, but tell me. I've watched so many
not
clips.
Seen it?
Yeah, I've seen a lot of clips.
The ending is like
I've seen the ending.
It's not action. It's not. I mean, there's action in it, but
terror.
It's not superheroes, bro. The ending is just
psychological thriller.
Edge of your seat shaking. The Joaquin Phoenix's performance, my heart like leapt from my chest in that final scene, and I was just like, I gotta watch this movie again. Wow, it was amazing, and it was for what it was. You say it's like Taxi Driver with the Joker storyline, but still, it did Joker very, very well as the Joker character.
Yep.
I would love to see them use that version of the Joker in future iterations of DC films, because that is an excellent Joker.
Yeah.
He would fit within the Matt Reeves version of those characters. I don't know if he would fit as well into the standard DCEU, given that it's far more Whedonized.
No, he would. It would be amazing.
I'd rather see him in Matt Reeves.
He's kind of Lex Luthor.
So look. I watched Dark Knight recently, and that version of the Joker is absolutely incredible, but very magical.
Right.
Like how he pulls these things off. Like all of a sudden he's got 2 fairies rigged with explosives. Like how did the Joker do that? Why are people working for this guy who's broke? He stole money from the mob, but he's reckless, so much so that the mob guy Maroni, I think it is, he's like, I can't do this craziness. I'm gonna help the police now. It was an excellent portrayal. It was a fun movie, but it was magical. This version of the Joker, they actually made it make sense. Why are people following him? Ideology. Because he was bucking the system. And he's out of his mind, but people are like, I don't care anymore. I absolutely love it. I think he'd be fantastic.
That makes so much sense about why Joker has a following in Gotham City, because Gotham's always been like post-apocalyptic. It's basically like the worst New York could become. And you can see that's great observation.
I actually like Batman Begins more than The Dark Knight visually, because I think it actually captures what Gotham is supposed to look like.
Yeah.
Much more, once it became The Dark Knight and then The Dark Knight Rises, it just became New York and Chicago mixed together. Whereas there was far more a far more ethereal dark tone.
Yeah. Here's what really gets me with Joker is the people protesting the 1%. They're outraged. Their lives are miserable. There's crime, and they're driven by ideology. So when I think of superheroes having to fight crazed masses, I'm like, I actually understand how you can't reason with far left extremists on the ground smashing windows. They're blinded by hatred and zealotry.
And as a superhero, you're sworn to protect them.
Yeah, how does Batman fight them? He doesn't. Not really.
Well, no, Batman gives them TBI.
Yeah.
He bashes their skulls in and leaves them rotting, shivering on the, shaking
the
on the
guy
ground.
stealing the loaf of bread and Batman, the meme of the
yeah. But I'm thinking about how they would do the new Joker in a future Batman movie is the followers of the Joker are just ideologues who are like, Bruce Wayne is corrupt. The Batman supports the police are crooked. This system needs to be torn
Clown
down.
world, baby.
From the ashes of the old, we shall build anew, and the Joker is the one to do it. And then you get Order, the Batman. I think that would be fantastic.
There's elements of like Court of Owls story being brought into this, meaning that there's a lot of possibility that the Waynes end up being corrupt in the new interpretation of the film, which could lend itself to that even better. Because he can't fight back as Bruce Wayne then because his parents are
And like in the Joker, Thomas Wayne looks kind of bad.
Yep.
So I think I'm so impressed with Joker. And they've done, like, Jared Leto, come on, no disrespect. I think, I don't know about that weird stuff he's doing with those women or whatever, as well as weird stories about him in Hollywood. But Fight Club, big fan. Him as the Joker, not so much.
So in Batman, is the Joker who's up against the 1%, like, against the Waynes because they're part of the 1%? Because that's a cool storyline, too.
Just crazy.
Or the people that follow the Joker, are they against the Waynes? Have they focused the hatred onto the Waynes?
Okay, in the film,
Thanks.
he thinks Thomas Wayne is his dad. And he's just schizophrenic. And so he's this angry, angsty, deranged guy who snaps. And there's some sympathy for him, the way he's mistreated and abused and how he goes off. But the protesters just think the system is broken. And they see this guy who goes on TV and says it to the world. And now he's got a following. And now the Joker from that point becomes arrogant. And when he says, like, now I see the humor in it, I'm like, that is such a good Joker. I would love to see his evolution into legit super villain. How his followers support him because they agree with him because they're driven by ideology. Fantastic.
Do you like the idea of them doing it with William Dafoe as like a faux Joker, like a Three Jokers type storyline from the comics? I didn't like that. Like, I don't want it to be any more like the comics. I want it to be like Nolan made it. It was basically crime dramas. I don't need it to be superhero-esque. I need it to be more like a standard thriller.
The way they did Joker, if they went ultra realistic, like Joker doesn't have magic powers where he can rig a fairy up, but then you deal with, the Batman or other superheroes struggling to deal with someone who's got such a large following. You don't know who is supporting him or where. You don't know how, like, what he's doing. And there's something to be said about people who don't know how to play a game and they're difficult to defeat. So if anyone plays poker, there's a certain difficulty in playing poker against someone who has no idea what they're doing. They make weird bets.
Yeah.
You don't know if they're bluffing, and then they play 2-7 offsuit, and they hit a full house, and you're like,
We got it.
I saw the 2 and the 7 on the board. I thought they'd never play it, and they win. So having that erratic behavior of Joker would be a really interesting. They could take that version. It'd be really interesting against a Bruce Wayne who's
where where Joker releases like a bioweapon and can blame it on the bat.
Well, I don't know about
Come
that.
on, that's the perfect
That's
the
great,
rap.
guys.
But
Tide's little bow to
but
put on
that's-
this conversation.
That's not realistic.
Well, that's like the
That's Joker
Wuhan
being-
land. It's a joke about the Wuhan.
I get it, but
Oh, okay.
but when
I thought it was funny.
I just said make it
In writing, I
I
think.
suppose I didn't understand because I'm like that's the opposite of what I just said.
Yeah, it was something else.
So I'm saying like you have this Joker who's just a mentally ill guy who develops a following. How could that
dangerous.
manifest
Pure
realistically
chaos.
against a Batman? Or a Justice
Unpredictability.
League?
He's like, I can calculate anyone's actions, but this man is totally erratic.
No.
I can't pick his next move.
He would have billionaire followers, like the far left. He'd have patrons who are ultra wealthy, and they would get word of like how to support the Joker, and they would be like, yes, the system must be torn down, and that's how he would develop these
Joker lives matter. You'd see like the Joker's face painted on like.
Clown lives
what is
matter.
it?
It's
The
just
stadium. They'd have like a Joker flag at the stadium.
It's just a rich guy who's telling the Joker what to take down because then he can bet stocks against the company.
Yeah.
Or here'd be a good one. A rich guy trying to manipulate the Joker, thinking his craze, can harm companies that would benefit him.
Exactly.
But the Joker's smarter than that. He may be crazy, but the Joker ends up manipulating him back, taking his money. Oh, man, I think they could do a lot of great stuff. Yeah. Thanks for checking out this segment from the Timcast IRL podcast. If you want to watch live, you can check out this channel Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Now, don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, and if you want more unfiltered and uncensored content with all of these guests, go to timcast.com and become a member. All of these guests you know and love in exclusive segments on our website where we are unrestricted in what we talk about, so you'll definitely not want to miss it. Thanks for hanging out. We'll see you all next time.